So we're looking at core data today. So far, we've dealt with persistence. I think back in Unit 3, we started persistence, or Unit 4, one of those. User defaults was the beginning of it. We started user defaults with persistence there. We went into file manager and documents directory, right? So all those mechanisms in iOS development is persistence, right? And to review, when we talk about persistence, we're saying, how do I save data to the user's device, right? I create some sort of data in the app, I close the app, I run the app again. I want that data to still exist in the application. So that's like persistence on the whole. That is data persistence, right? Today we're going to introduce to an API in iOS called Core Data. Core Data is a framework. It has import core data, very similar to what we've seen with UIKit, right? So core data is a persistence framework in iOS, right? The difference between core data and say file manager, documents directory, core data itself is more robust, right? When I say it's more robust, it has way more functionalities than saving an array to documents directory, right? Core data is known as an object graph, right? When I say object graph, we haven't done graphs yet, but when I say object graph, basically there's a connection, right? I may have a connection to Christian. Christian may have a connection to me, right? That sort of thing. How do I create that relationship with my objects in my iOS app, right? The iOS app we'll be building today throughout the rest of the days we have. We'll continue tomorrow, and there's no class Friday, so we'll probably end up finishing on Monday. Again, my objective is not to rush through the application. My objective is for us to leave this app knowing the basic fundamentals of core data, and how do I take an app without core data and add core data to it, right? So we'll go through the app. Today we'll begin the UI. The way the lesson is structured, it's structured such that core data is tied into the app from the get-go. I will approach it somewhat differently. We'll create an app entirely, create the app without any persistence, right? And then go back to the app and add core data to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because along the way, if we build core data with the app, it might be a bit confusing, right? Very similar to like the approach we did with KVO. I want to break it in small pieces, and I want us to understand what are the fundamental pieces that make core data work, right? So if we have an app, there's users, there's posts. I create a user, I close the app, the user does not persist, right? Very similar to the app we have here right now. Nothing persists. So if I close the app and I run the app again, no longer will I have one here, one will be gone. So this is basically the fundamental I want to get to us today. Build the UI for the app. If we don't finish the UI today, we'll finish tomorrow, and then we'll start introducing to the app. What does core data look like? How do I create relationships in my objects? What is the point of core data? So today, basic objective is to start working on the UI, okay? And by tomorrow, we should start getting into what core data gives us, right? How can we save data? How can we persist data using core data? How is core data different from documents directory, right? To give us one big difference, with documents directory and core data, there's no relationships, right? I have an array doesn't know about another array if I save both those arrays in my documents directory. But with core data, I'm saving one model, and that model, within the model, has objects. So within that core data model, I could have a user's object, I could have a post object, right? And there could be a relationship between those two. The relationship would be a user has multiple posts, right? So a user has a too many relationship to that particular post, but a post cannot have multiple users in our particular app, right? I mean, there could be a world where, yes, there's multiple contributors to a post, but in our app, it's one to many, where there's one user, many posts, right? That's the relationship. We'll see what that looks like tomorrow in core data. And the next relationship is a post has one user. I'll pause here for any questions.
When you said the that the two arrays don't know about each other previous to using core data. You said we built one model in the properties would have both, or what was that I missed there?
Yeah, so the way we would set up our core data tomorrow, for example, we would have a user model,
Mm-hmm.
and the user model would have a relationship, and that relationship itself is a property. It would have a relationship to the post, and that property would be like a set of posts, right? Or for example, we could just say an array of posts, right? So that's what we're talking about when we say relationships. So when I'm able to make what's known as like a predicate, like I'm able to query, I'm able to ask the user, give me all your posts, right? I'm able to do more complicated queries on my core data model, as opposed to having one array in my plist file, for example. For me to do anything with that array in my plist, in my documents directory, I need to first grab the plist, and I need to filter or sort that entire array. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Probably when I see it, I'll talking about it, I can visualize, but not much more.
With the relationship part of it?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
the logic wise, I get, but I'm much more of a visual learner. So
Yep.
when I see it, I'll identify it.
Yep. So before we talk about the core data stack, I could just show you what the relationship looks like, and then we'll come back to it. So the relationship we're talking about here, tomorrow when we start modeling the core data, we'll have this graph system or this visual system to work with, right? Here we have two models. One model is a post, and the other one is a user. And as I said before, a user has multiple posts. Everybody remember that one? Right? So here we see a user, the relationship between a user and a post is that the user has multiple posts, right? So it's one to many. That's how the arrow is there. One, right? One to many. That's the relationship that we're talking about, okay? And a post has a relationship to a user in the aspect that a post has one user. So the relationship, on the relationships, we see user. And again, tomorrow we'll be going through that, but I want to introduce what it looks like so that tomorrow we at least heard about it before. Christian, does that help a little bit better visually?
I mean, yeah, it helps. It helps a lot better for the relationships. For the
Okay.
Yeah, again, once I see it in action, I'll identify it better.
Yep.
But yeah, it clears up.
Awesome. As far as the core data stack, I'm not even, let's see, I'm not going to talk about the core data stack. We'll revisit the core data stack tomorrow when we actually start building the core data part of the app. Does that help? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, the point of this is to break it down such that we first have the app with the UI and everything, and then we're like, okay, let's add core data to this now because we want to add persistence to the app, right? By today, we're not going to have persistence. We create users, we create posts, we kill the app, come back, nothing is there. But once we add core data or file manager or Firebase, whatever sort of persistence mechanism you add to the app, then your app will still have those users after you close the app and relaunch it. Does that make sense? So persistence could still be seen as Firebase, which is still persistence. It's still persistent data. It's just persisting the data online as opposed to locally. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so again, the objective is to start working on the UI of our application. We'll build an app. The app will be called Number Facts, and Number Facts will have two tabs. It will have users and it will have posts. So we're able to create users, we're able to create posts, and after completing the UI, we'll come back and revisit what core data is. Any questions about the objective of today? Again, I was going to have the scaffold app ready, but I still want us to revisit because there's still, we haven't done iOS apps for a while. So I just want to revisit that and make sure that we all on board with implementing apps as we go in further into or closer into getting job ready. Just to make sure that all those muscles are still there.
Sure.
Okay. 1 second, where is the, Okay. All right. Any questions before we get started? Okay. Is everybody okay to work through 1 o'clock, or there's engagements there? Because my initial, I was going to start at 12, take a break at 1 to 2, come back at 2 o'clock. At this point, is everybody okay to work through 1? Okay. You could
I'm good. I feel like we're just
drop in the chat. You could drop in the chat if you're not able to. Other than that, we
Can
will.
can you give us a schedule that we will understand, like through 1, what do you mean, like 15 minutes or 1 hour?
So right now it's 12:15, so we'll just work to 2 o'clock. We'll work to 2 o'clock. Yulia?
And after 2, we don't have class.
After 2, we'll see where we are with the app, and then if we need to, we'll take a break and come back, or we'll just come back tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so let us get started with our project. Let's navigate to Xcode. And it's a project, it's not Playgrounds. So create a new project. It's a single view application. Actually just prefix this with core data so it's easier to find. Core data, number, facts. Core data, number, facts. And before we move on here, this is the first time we'll actually be selecting use core data. So everybody, please make sure that the use core data is checked. So this is the first time we're actually using core data in an application. And by saying, by checking the box, use core data, we get some boilerplate code by doing that, okay? So if you wanna add core data, it's very similar to like adding unit tests to your app. If you wanna add unit tests, you click on that, that checkbox there and you get some boilerplate code from Xcode. So here we want to add core data to our application. So we click on use core data. And keep in mind, you could add core data to an existing application, very similar to how you could add unit tests to an existing application, okay? So far, so good? All right, so make sure that we have used core data here. The name of our app is core data number facts, and we go next. And we create. Okay. Before we continue, I just want us to go to the app delegate. So click on the app delegate. Let me make this bigger. Click on the app delegate, and let's see what we got by clicking on that core data option there. So if we all in the app delegate, we could actually scroll down. I think there's a pragma mark here. Yeah, perfect. So scroll down to line 36, where it says core data stack. And this is what—
I think I missed something because I don't have that.
You don't have the— did you check the core data box?
I didn't. Do I have to delete it and do it over?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so, oh shit.
Anybody else does not see core data stack in the app delegate? Anybody else does not see it? Tiff, let us know when you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we choose a single view app, right? Next, and then use
Single
core
view app, right? Next, and make sure this use core data here is selected.
Number facts.
You see it?
And
Tiffany, did you check it?
yes, I did.
Okay, perfect.
And I'm opening the project. Wait. Okay, yes.
Okay, so now you should see a core data stack, correct?
Yeah.
So this you get for free if you use that check mark. If you do not use that check mark, you do not have that code. So you could simply, if you want to add core data to an existing application, the easiest way is to create like a test application or a dummy application and basically copy all that line of code here up to line 79. And then you'd add it to an existing app. Everybody with me?
Okay.
So this will be step 1 and step 2. We'll take a brief look at what it looks like. Step 2, anybody recognize something different or new in our default files?
Is you import core data?
Import core data is one. You need that in order to get the core data specific APIs to work. But as far as like the navigation area.
Oh, we don't have a window? Oh no, that's Steam Delegate. Never mind.
Core data number facts XC data model.
Yes, sir. And you've gotten the daily prize. Collect it at the door.
Oh, that's
What do I get?
Collect it at the door. Just go
you
to
get
the
a
door.
round of applause.
I have a door right here.
Yeah, just open the door. You'll see it. Thank you, sir, Mr. Christian. Welcome. Very good. So Christian says that we have a new file here, which we haven't seen yet up to today. We haven't seen this file. This file, the extension is XC data model, right? That's a core data model file. This is what we saw when we showed the relationship between the two objects here, right? Everybody?
Yeah.
Right? So if I click on it, that's what we're gonna be looking at tomorrow. Here I could create the user's model, I could create the post model, and I could also see visually what those relationship, what that table looks like, or what that entity looks like. Okay, everybody? So those are the two things that when you add core data to a project, those are the two things you get. One is the code in the app delegate, and 2 is this XC data model. The XC data model, you could create it very easily. Same as we create a regular file. I would go to File here. I would go to New. I would go to File, New File, and I would go down to, everybody sees core data here. So if I go File, New File, below core data, do we see data model?
Yeah.
So that data model file is the same as the one we got here when we selected core data.
Okay.
So to keep in mind, if you have an existing app or you want to create more models, more core data models, this is where you go. Cool? So we've just gone through what the boilerplate select core data gives us. Other concepts, I'll go through it. We'll go through it again tomorrow. But if we go back down to the app delegate and we go to the persistent container, and we'll talk about the save context here briefly, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow again. Okay, everybody has their core data stack, right? On 36, we all have access to this lazy bar here. Okay, so core data is not a database, but it works along with SQLite beneath the hood, but it's not a full database, right? So people with database backgrounds, it's not a full database, right? Core data has this concept of a container. The container here, called persistence container, that container holds the data model itself, right? So if you want to access anything in that particular data model, you have to get access to the persistent container, okay? If you want to save anything, whether it be a deletion, whether it be adding a new post, anything you need to do, you need to access the save context. Okay, the save context is part of what's known as the NS managed object context. Let's go back to the notes to really talk about it. Oh, my kids are going out of hand right now. Sorry. It's like a perfect storm. There's our concept here. Actually, let's just go through this. So let's go back to the lesson number 2. How does core data work? Again, this is introduction. As Christian says, the more we start writing the actual code, the more it will all make sense. Right now, knowing the difference between NS managed object context and NS managed object without actually doing it is harder, but let's talk about it. Okay, so core data has this stack, how it works, right? So in the NS managed object context, in this container here, the NS managed object context, think about it like a bigger container that holds all your objects. So say, for example, I have three users here. Each user, if I'm using core data, each user would have to be subclassing from NS managed object. So each object in that object context is an NS managed object, okay? When we create our class tomorrow for user and post, those will be inheriting from what's known as NS object. In order for it to work with core data, it needs to be inheriting from NS object. Very similar to what we did with KVO, right? So we inherited from NS object. Everybody remember that? So the class needs to inherit from NS object in order for it to be observable. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So if my class has to work with core data, it needs to inherit from NS object, right? So my class itself is an NS object class. And what does the saving and everything is the actual NS object context. So that save context we saw there is, think about it like a canvas, right? Think about it like a container that you're ready to ship to the post office, right? You put stuff in the container, but until you go to the post office and you say, hey, go ahead and mail this out, it's not done. So in order to execute anything, you need to get access to this NS managed object context in order to save anything. So even if I changed like a property name on my user, or I change the number of posts they have, anything I do with my objects, the change does not happen until you say save context. Okay, we'll see what that looks like in code, but that's what the NS managed object context is. Think about it like a canvas. You paint on it, you do everything on it, but if you have to save anything on it, you have to save that canvas itself. Okay. All right. So we said it has SQLite under the hood, and then we have the file system, which is iOS here. And the things to just keep in mind, the only things to keep in mind for now, an NS object, NS managed object is my actual user objects or my post objects, right? My instances. The NS manager object context is the thing I go to say I want to save this. Very similar to file manager, right? File manager, you want to save something, you go to file manager, you say .write or whatever, you will have to get access to that context. Okay. Okay, so that's it there. Let's go back. So this is the context here, and we need access to that context to save any changes. So that's the app delegate code. Again, throughout the app, as we build it, we'll see why and how all those things come into play. Okay, so we spoke about app delegate, we spoke about the model. We haven't done anything in the model yet. We haven't done anything in the model yet. In the core data model, we will add attributes and entities tomorrow. I don't want to talk about that right now. Let's just do it as we go into it. Again, this is the first introduction of it, very light. Let's go to our storyboard and actually start building what the app is going to look like. So our application is the UI. That's what I'm saying, like it looks very dense, right? That's why I'm trying to break it up as much as I can. I don't want to overwhelm us in any, for reasons we don't need. So we'll have a tab controller, we'll have two tabs here, we'll have a post and we'll have a users, keep going down. So my post here will have all the posts that the users have. I'll have like an add button here. When I click on add, it will bring up a Modal presentation. We're not gonna actually push it, we'll just use like a Modal presentation. We'll be able to add the title for the post, and we'll be able to add like a fact number. For example, the title could be pi, and the fact about pi is 3.14. So far, so good. The picker view here, that will be all the users in the app. So I'll be able to select the user who's making the post. I'll just be able to go through the picker view and select the user. Again, this is not the UI we push to the App Store, but that's what we have working with. So far, so good? Because part of it is like, how do I get my users from core data here to get populated? Okay? And then when I click submit, that should populate my table view. Right? Everybody with me so far? Right? Cool. So users, very similar. I have a users tab. I click on the bar button, takes me to Modal presentation here. I'm able to put in a user, like I'm creating a user, sorry. I'm able to put the username and I'm able to select their birthday, their date of birth, right? And I click submit, that creates a new user. If I click on a user, I'm able to go to the post for the user. There's no detail showing that, but I'll be able to come back to the post to see what the user's posts are. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? So when I click on a user here in the table view, it will go to the post controller to show all the posts that user has. Maybe the user doesn't have any posts, maybe they have posts. That's it. That's it. So that's the UI. And then our objective is to build the UI, and tomorrow we'll add in the core data piece by piece to see, hey, how this works and all that stuff there. Because if we build an app with core data, it's going to be hard to encapsulate what parts was core data and what parts were not core data. And how can I integrate core data into my existing application? I'll pause for any questions.
Wait, what's happening?
No, I'm just pausing for questions. If you have any questions. Ahad to
Uh,
everyone. Smiley, not smiley. Ahad,
So
what's going on?
so when we hit the submit button, are we basically doing the same thing we do with like file manager, where we'll be going into core data and putting that into our table view?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and
Correct.
then core data, since it's like it holds the relationships between different objects, so it's already like ready for us to use by the time it's in the table view.
Exactly. But today we not incorporating core data with it. We just have like a simple array and a singleton to hold that. And tomorrow we'll do some refactoring to add core data to it.
And what's the relationship again between persistence container and NS object manage context?
So the persistence container holds the NS manage object context. So the container itself could have multiple contexts, but in our case, we'll just have one context. Most times your app has only one context, but that context is managed by the persistence container.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. It's like an umbrella of items or structures. One?
Yep, just writing it down.
Okay. All right, cool. So this is our UI. Let's go build it out. So let's navigate to our storyboard like we did yesterday. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Let's delete the view controller. Oh, don't you want to delete? What's happening? Okay. Weird. Doesn't want to delete here. Delete the view controller and let's get a tab controller in here. So tab controller. Let's drag a tab controller in. Was everybody able to delete the view controller and add a tab controller? All right,
Yep.
Awesome. So we have a tab controller. What's the first thing we'll do? Let's make sure it has an entry point here. So click on your tab controller and go to Attribute Inspector and click on Is Initial View Controller. So then we get that arrow here that says, hey, this is the initial view controller. We're good to go. Other things we'll do, we'll click on the first view controller here.
You said a table view controller or a tab?
Tab bar controller.
Okay. I thought I heard you. I just want to make sure I wasn't blanking.
Sorry. We'll click on our first view controller, change the class to view controller. And before we do anything, we'll just run the app. Make sure we have our tab bar controller with 2 tabs. Don't go over here, stay over here, thank you. So here we have our app running with 2 tabs. We have item 1, item 2. There's no content there yet. We'll add more content along the way. But just to verify that we do have our tab bar working, that's what we have.
Oops.
Okay. Doing good? Okay.
You know, all we had to do was just make it the initial controller and then run it, right?
Yeah, just to verify everything is running fine. Because we don't want to do too many things and run later and like, oh, nothing works. Cool. Works, Tiffany?
Actually, my computer is bugging out right now.
It's bugging out. Is it heating up like mine? Is it like really hot?
No, it's not. But I was like trying to stop building and it wouldn't let me stop, but it just fixed itself. So I'm
Okay, good.
checking now. It's running slow. I'm not really feeling that.
Yeah. Case of the Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's now we'll embed both our controllers in nav controllers, but let's do the first one first. So item one, or the first scene, click on it and go down to embed here. We embedded it in a navigation controller. So we've embedded it in a nav controller. Now we have access to the nav bar, and we could put in a bar button item. Wrong chat. What did you do? Yeah, what's happening?
Okay, good.
Mr. Bien, you have a question? I'm also looking at chat if you have a question. Cool. So let's go ahead and add a table view controller to this. Table view. Not table view controller, table view, sorry. Just a table view. Table view, drag it over here. And let's set the constraints for it. 0 all around. Awesome. And let's give it a cell. So go to Attributes Inspector, change prototype cells to 1. Click on the cell itself. And the reuse identifier, we'll call it post cell. And we'll make the style subtitle.
Are we making the entire thing the view controller or just the center? Just like that middle part?
Just the safe area. Yeah, safe area. So below the top bar and above the bottom bar. So we have that. That's good. Now let's go to add a UI bar button item. UI bar button. So drag over a bar button item to your right area here. And this is going to be a plus image. So simply search for plus here. Plus, and now we have a plus image. So the user is able to now click on this. Well, nothing's going to happen yet, but when they click on the plus sign, it will present modally a view so that they could add a new post. While we're here, we could just give this a title, just call it post. And make sure that your cell has a reuse identifier. Cool. So now let's add a view controller. This is going to be the Modal view controller for creating post. I'll just put it right above here.
I'm sorry, what was the prototype name?
We called it post cell.
Post cell. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, very welcome. And that takes us to our create post UI. Our create post UI has, well, we need to redo that. We're gonna use a table view controller for this one. Delete the last view controller we just added, the one above here, just delete it. And search for table view controller. This is going to be a better UI for us to use. So table view controller, not just a view controller. And the reason why we're using this, because we have static cells. Okay. So we have
the third view controller.
Yes, yes. So the one where I click the plus sign and I navigate to it via like a modal presentation, this one is going to be a table view controller. And why did we choose a table view controller? Because we could have static cells on it. And our cells, I think we have about 4 cells here. So it's easier for us to set up our UI. Cool? Good? Okay, cool. So let us control drag from our plus sign here, control drag from our bar button item, control drag over to our table view controller, and just select present modally. select present modally. Cool. Keep going. We need a name. No, we don't need a name for this. Okay, so let's set that up. We have our table view controller. It has, please make sure your document outline is open. It's gonna be easier for you to navigate working with the table view controller. So please make sure your document outline is open. If it's not open, just toggle at the bottom here where it says view as iPhone. You could close it and you could open it. So make sure your document outline is open. Okay, so we have our table view controller. It has a table view in it. It has a cell. We could open that up. There's no content yet. On our table view, click on your table view. We're about to change the table view type or the content type. So click on your table view and go to the attributes inspector. What's the content cells we have here? Dynamic prototypes, correct? So we want to change that to static cells, from prototype cells to static cells. So click on static cells here. And by default, it gives us 3 cells, okay? So click on your table view, go change the cells to static cells. We have 1 section, which is fine. Now we have a new table view section. Now click on the table view section in the document outline. It says 3 rows. There's no header. We could give it a header. We could write something like create post, and that just gives us a header. Okay. Other things we could do with our table view, we could change the style of it. So the style here is a plain style. I could change plain to group, for example. Right?
Alex, my bad.
Yes.
Where the thing you just did, table view sections?
Let me go back here. So table view sections, we're in the table view.
And then you went to the attributes inspector?
Yeah, we're in the attributes inspector for the section, right?
Okay, and you call it create post.
Yeah, we just changed the header. And you could also do footers too, like do a footer here, 2020, something like that. So you could also have footers too, but we don't have no footer here for now, just like
Are you running for president? we could use you.
Oh man, I don't know. I think Luba would probably not vote for me. Luba.
If you hire her to build your app, she probably will vote for you.
Yes, probably.
Yes, what's up?
Would you vote for me?
To do what?
You see that? You see that? You see that? You hear that? You hear that? I'm telling you. Okay, cool. So we have 3 cells here, or 3 rows. Let's go ahead and set that up. So our first row, what do we want? We want a text field. So the beauty of a table view controller, it allows you to be dynamic with what you want to do. You could have the cells be in whatever height you want. You could put a map view in here. You could put anything you want in here, an image view in here. We've done it before, but just to reiterate, because we don't do it all the time, right? It's like one of the things. So let's get a text field. So search for text field. Drag a text field over. And we'll drag the trail in to the blue guideline. We will drag the lead in to the blue guideline. That's fine here. We'll give it a placeholder text. We'll say something like enter post title. So enter post title. We could set the constraints for it. So here, I'll just keep it as the default constraints it has. That's okay. Actually 20, let's do 4 and 4 at the bottom. So I have 4 at the top, 4 at the bottom, 20, 20. And I add 4 constraints.
What was the placeholder text?
The placeholder text, we just said enter post title. Time just flies when you're building an app. Okay, cool. So we have our first row. Let's go to our second row. Actually, we could just option click, option drag, and place it in the second cell. Did it take the constraints? No, it didn't take the constraints. So let's set constraints for it. First, let's set the second text field. Let's set the placeholder for it. We'll say enter number fact. So enter number fact, and we'll set the constraints for it as well. So we have 4 to the top, 22 leading, 20 trailing, and 4 to the bottom. So those are 4 constraints. Cool, great. So let's go to our third cell. Third cell, we want to make a bit bigger or taller. Click on your third cell. Actually, before you click on your third cell, let's add a fourth one because the fourth one doesn't have a different height. So how do we do that? Click on your section or create post here. Everybody click on the create post section. In your attributes, you should have now access to the rows. Do we see that? Yeah. So we could increment, we could add the number of rows, we could decrease the number of rows, right? So here we could just increment this by 1. So now we have 4 rows.
Wait, the next one said enter post title, enter number fact. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, enter number fact.
I'm like,
awesome. So here we have create post. So click on the section, right? The table view section. Click on the table view section. Attributes inspector should show rows equal 3, yes?
yeah.
Yes.
Increase it to 4 because we have 4 cells. Increase it to 4. And now let's go back to, we could actually collapse things. And let's go to the third cell. Click on your third cell. Right now you have 4 cells, right? 4 cells. Right now we have 4 cells. Everybody has 4 cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
So click on your third cell. It doesn't have anything in it yet. Click on your third cell, go to the size inspector. Click on your third cell, go to the size inspector. Do we see where it says row height?
Yeah.
So untoggle the row height and then just give it like 300 points. Okay, great. Next, let's go get a picker view. So search for picker view, picker view. Search for a picker view, drag a picker view over, center it on the cell, and let's set the constraints for that. So let's go to constraints. We'll say 0, 0. So 0 to the lead-in, 0 to the trailing. We add those 2 constraints, and we'll make it center. So center vertically, center horizontally. And here we have our picker view. And in the fourth cell, we'll add a button. We'll add our submit button in the fourth cell. Okay, so now let's go to the fourth cell and search for a button, a UI button. So
Alex,
UI.
how did you remove the height from the third cell?
How did I remove the height? So I clicked on the cell.
Okay.
I went to size inspector, and this was checked. There was a blue check. There was a check here. Do you see it on your end?
No.
So click on the cell. Is your document outline open?
Yeah.
Okay, so click on the cell, the third cell in that case.
Found it.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
And what did we change it to?
We changed it to 300.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we dragged in a picker view. For the fourth cell, let's get a button. So just get a button here. And this is just your button. We could change the title of the button to say submit. And click on your button. it might get hard to click on things sometimes. You could always use the document outline. Click on your button, and we're just going to center it vertically and horizontally in the container or in the cell. So click on a line here and center horizontally and vertically. So here we have our button. At this point, all constraints should be set up. We shouldn't have any errors with anything, or warnings rather. And the next step is just to test it, right? Make sure that it renders correctly. When we click the add button, make sure that segues, and we could just swipe away to go back to the post. Tiffany, were you able to, sorry, Chelsea, were you able to get that?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Everybody else is good? We all together?
Yep.
The chat is quiet, so I'm assuming everybody's good. All right, cool. So let us continue on. Just run the app. So we have a table view, that's great. I click on the plus sign, that should segue to our create. That segues to our create. We have a create post here. We have enter here, we could enter that. So we could change the text here, because maybe for the numbers, maybe we just want decimals, right? So we could change the keyboard type here, and we could swipe away. Was everybody able to get that part of it working good?
Yep.
Yep, okay, awesome. Cool.
Alex, my table view doesn't show any more cells apart from this. Like your table view has more cells on the bottom.
Actually, we don't want that. That should have been a group. I don't know why it didn't. You mean like, 1 second. You mean like at the bottom here?
Yeah.
I don't want that really. Like if yours is not showing, that's what we want. So I want to go back and double check what type of grouping I have.
Okay.
Okay. Because that's a better UI. You don't want to show cells where there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. I thought we had grouped earlier. Table view, attributes. Oh, it didn't take. So I thought I changed it on mine, but I didn't. So basically, make sure your style says grouped here, everybody, for the table view itself. Hello.
Should make sure it says what?
Yes, we're good.
Grouped. For the style. Christian, for the group style, for the table view style.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure it says
okay.
grouped, right?
All
And
right,
if I run it again, it should be like what Yulia is describing. We don't want to have extra cells where there's nothing. So if I click on the plus sign, it should be empty here. Luba, that's what you have, correct?
Yes.
All right, cool, awesome. Our picker view doesn't have data yet. That's fine, but we do know the picker view exists because we see the 2 empty lines here. This is also okay. Let's keep going here. Good. So we have the first part of the UI good and ready. At this point, let's see. Let's continue working on storyboard and then we'll connect the outlets. So this one is pretty good. I would probably rather have I'm sorry?
Sorry.
No worries. For the keyboard type, let's change the keyboard type for the text, for the number text to change the keyboard type for the second text field. So click on the second text field and go down to keyboard type here. Everybody sees keyboard type? Does everybody see keyboard type?
Yes.
And just change it to decimal. Decimal is fine. All right. And I think, do we need autocorrect anywhere? Maybe take out autocorrect on, take out autocorrection on the post title, maybe. Correction, just say no. Okay, that's fine. We could come back and tweak stuff as we need. All right, so our create post is pretty good. We could segue to that. Let's work on our users a little bit. This guy also needs a table view. Also needs to be embedded in a nav controller, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So embed our second tab in a nav controller. Embedded it in a nav controller. Let's access a table view. Table view.
Is it the same as the top one?
Yeah, so the
okay.
constraints are the same. I think we won't have a subtitle cell. That's the only difference, I think.
Okay.
We could change it later if we need, but for now it's the same. Set up our constraints. That's good. Change our prototype cell to be 1. Give the cell some sort of identifier. This is a user, so we could just call it user cell. So the identifier is user cell. We have 1 prototype cell. And we said, what's that?
Custom.
Custom what?
Cell is custom.
Yeah, we didn't change it to subtitle or anything. So it's just like a default cell with 1 label. Cool?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Bruce Lee. I couldn't imagine I'm with Bruce Lee, in 2020. My childhood dream to meet Bruce, and I'm with Bruce right now. Cool. All right. So we have, I'm sorry?
What was the reuse identifier for this?
We called it user cell.
Okay.
Yeah, user cell. Thank you. And thank you, Tanya, for coming on video. I think our objective is always try to get like 60 or more % video representation. All right, so if we could get that video there, that would be good. Something about connecting with, right? Like we're not in pursuit, but we have to see each other, right? Cool, thank you. Awesome, so we have our second table view. Let's go ahead and set up the modal for that. So let's get a button here. So UI bar button. All right, I have a bar button item. This is also the plus sign. We'll just give it a title. We'll call it users for the nav bar. So far, so good. I click on this add sign. I want to present something modally. Let's go ahead and do so. So view controller.
Is it another table view controller?
It's another table view. Thank you for that. Thank you, sir. There's more things out your door. You just keep getting gifts.
Hey man, Amazon still works. I'll send you my address.
All right, do that. Hey, that's not what I need. Wait. Mr. Christian said a table view controller. That's what we need. Okay, so where are we gonna position this? We could position it at the bottom.
Again,
I'll put it under.
I'll put it at the bottom. The reason why I like to do that, because I know it's not pushing, right? Like normally when you use an app, it doesn't push. Like if you want to create something new, you don't normally see like a push segue. Does that make sense? Right? It normally like presents it modally. So that's like what we're going for here. So I click on this cell, or I click on the add button. It segues to this guy, which is good. So let's just quickly do that. Control drag from the plus sign here down to our table view controller and select present modally. Select present modally. Awesome. So let's set that up. What does that have? So the user is able to have a username or whatever, and also be able to select their birth date. So that's what we have. So we have 2 cells or 3 cells. One cell has a text field. The other cell has a picker view, or a date picker rather, and the other cell has the submit button. So very similar to what we just did with slight differences. So let's go to our, open up the table view, click on your table view. What's the first thing we need to do now? I'm on the table view. I want to make it static. What am I doing?
Changes to static cells instead of dynamic prototype.
Okay, so we go to the table view attributes here and we change it to static cells. Awesome, and it gives us 3 by default. I want to make it grouped. I'll change the style to grouped. So that becomes grouped here. Now I have a section header. I could give the section, or the section, I could give it a header. I could say create a user. Awesome. So now we have our table view, we have our create user section, we have 3 cells, which is what we need, right? 1, 2, 3, good. So let's start off with the first cell. Click on the first cell, and we're dragging in a text field. So search for text field. Text field. The constraints will be similar to what we had earlier up top for the text field. So let's set the text field constraints. With my text field selected, I go down to the constraints area. I say 4 to the top. I say 4 to the bottom, 20 leading, 20 trailing, 4 constraints. I select add 4 constraints. Awesome. I'll give it a placeholder text. I will say enter username, enter username. For my second cell, I'll click on the cell. I'll go to size inspector. Again, I'll change automatic. Again, the points recommended by Apple is 44 points. So here we have 44 points, right? So I'm gonna change the minimum. So like people like me, I'm not like clicking on 2 cells or the wrong cell. So that's why the recommended is always like 44. So here we wanna change automatic and make it bigger because we have a picker view coming in. We used 300 before, that's fine. So now I'll drag in, what am I using now?
Date picker.
A date picker, thank you, sir. So drag in a date picker here and set the constraints for the date picker. For our date picker, we'll go down to set the constraints for it. 0 to the lead-in, 0 to the trailing, add 2 constraints. Then we'll center it.
Vertically.
Center it. Vertically and horizontally. Awesome. What else should we change here?
The type of days, because it's right now it's just like hourly and minutes.
Very good. So we'll change the type of date format it is. So I click on my date picker, I go to the attributes inspector, and I change the mode from date and time to date. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. There's other things we need to do once we get to the view controller. What's one of those things? Like what should a user not be able to do?
Maximum date should be like today to see.
Very good, very good. Awesome. So that makes sense. You could get even, yeah, that's good. So we don't want to, the person wasn't born
we
yet.
get even more specific, like maybe 18 years ago, you know?
Yeah, it's good, it's perfect.
16 years ago.
Exactly, very, very good. Did everybody get that here? How to change the date picker?
I didn't get it, could you repeat it, Alex?
So the date picker, the default we had was date and time, right? So we clicked on it, we went to the attributes inspector, and we changed mode from date and time to just date. Does it work for you?
I'm looking for the mode.
So make sure you click not the cell. If you have difficulty clicking on the cell, click on the date picker itself.
Yeah, and it says you changed it to time?
Change it to date, just date.
Got it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So here we are doing good. So now we have our constraints, right? Yeah, we do. So let's get a button. So go to object library and search for a button and drag a button over to our third cell. And let's set the constraints for this. It's just going to be alignment constraints. So horizontally centered and vertically centered. Add 2 constraints. Awesome. Double click on the button and change it to submit. Great. Luba, how's the Empire? It looked like you are definitely Star Wars there.
Did we change the maximum date at all yet?
No, we'll do it in code.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could do it here, but we'll do it in code. Okay, so let's see. We are good here. Let's test this out. Let's change the username first, the text. Let's make it not autocorrect. So click on the text field and change correction to no. All right, and let's test this. So here, let's go to item 2. Let's change that soon too. Click on the Bobbin item in the users tab. That should now show our create user UI. And we could add stuff in here. We could change dates in here. We could click submit. Submit doesn't do anything yet, but we could like simply swipe out. Everybody has that UI. Okay, awesome. What else we need to do here? The rest we'll do in code. We'll connect that in code when the person selects an item. That's fine. Okay, cool. So now let's set up our outlets and everything. So open up the system editor. Open up our system editor. Get some space going there. Close my document outline. I don't need that anymore. Open that up. And let's start with the, so many moving parts here. Let's start with the post first. Let's start with the post controller. Although we don't call it post controller. Actually, let's rename it right now. Everybody has access to the assistant editor next to them, next to the scenes. Okay, let's refactor the view controller. We'll just call it post view controller. So refactor, rename, post view controller. Xcode, you close my thing, open it back. Thank you. All right, so we have our post controller, awesome. So now we're able to drag stuff to it. It needs a table view. So let's drag our table view over, control drag. Call it table view. We have a table view, that's awesome. The button itself, we have the segue already working there for us. We don't need anything here. Let's keep going. Next we have, actually let's stay here, let's go up top. Let's go to now the unnamed table view controller. It doesn't have a name yet. So we have to create controllers. A lot of code, right guys, to get to where we want to get to, right? Okay.
Need a new view controller, create post VC.
Yeah, but let's actually just create a folder for this. So right click on your view controller, right click on it, and select new group from selection. So we could start bottling things up. And here we'll just call this controllers. Let's add main tab, this tab, not the info plist. Just put those in supporting files. We have no models yet, but let's just create a models folder. Not a new file, mister. Just create a new group and call it models. All right. We'll have some default models for now. Again, we're not showing core data yet today, but if we're able to at least populate one model with dummy data, that's good. So for our models for now, we'll just create a new file, and it's a Swift file. For now, we'll just say local user. Again, tomorrow we'll have actual core data users or core data models, and we'll create a second model, call it local post. All right, so we have a models folder, a controllers folder, supporting files, and let's take the app delegate and the scene delegate down to supporting files. Okay, cool. Now let's actually just create all the controllers we need or we think we need for now, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add them. So we have a post view controller. Let's create a new file, CocoaTouch class. Let me get the table views out of the way first. So UI table view controller. This is the create post. Yeah, exactly. Create post view controller. Create post view controller is a subclass of UI table view controller. Everybody agrees?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, so that's good. Create. Next, let's get to the users. The users doesn't have a class either, so new file, CocoaTouch. Again, let's do the table views for now. So we have a create user view controller. Create. Let us create new file for the users view controller itself, which is a UI view controller. So subclass of UI view controller, and we have users controller. Are we good? I think so. 1, 2. There's no detail per se. I think we're good for now. Okay, cool. And we could kind of organize that such that the user view controller is stacked on top of the create user, the post is stacked on the create post. All right, awesome. Everybody has 4 controllers. Do we need some time before we continue? Are we good? We are good. Okay, cool. Let's go back to our storyboard and manage everything. So where were we? We were up here in the create post. So make sure your create post is on screen. Create post scene. Click on it and let's change the class. So click on your create post scene and let's go change the class. So the class here is going to be create post. Press enter. So make sure you have your create post next to you. Let's just clean some code up here.
You just set the names to the controllers, right?
Yeah, we gotta set the names now. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 outlets. Well, the third one is not gonna be an outlet. The third one will be an action. The fourth one will be an action, sorry. Was that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go set the outlets now. So we have our create post view controller. Let us drag. Let's drag outlets over. So we'll start with the enter post title or the post title text field. Control drag over. We'll call this post title text field. Was everybody able to connect their outlet to the controller? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Again, like we're working from home, I think that app might end up being 3 days, just to give us a heads up there, because I don't wanna just overwhelm us either. So wherever we get to today, I think we'll stop at 2, let us go work on our lab, and then come back tomorrow to continue the UI. Even if we don't get to core data tomorrow, that's okay, we'll just push the lab out. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Right? Because yeah, everybody's different with like the amount of time they could sit in one area. Okay, so post title, this is good. Let's connect our number fact. So control drag number fact over. Number fact text field. Awesome. Our picker view. What does our picker view do? I almost think that could be an interview question. There's picker view and there's date picker, right? Which one has delegate and which one doesn't? Or which one has protocols and which one doesn't?
Which one has protocols? Picker view probably.
The picker view has protocols.
Picker view has protocols, very good. And date picker has target action, right?
That makes sense.
Right? Everybody?
Yes. Oh shoot.
What happened? What's with the français?
My charger broke inside of my phone.
Oh no.
Oh, that's so
Does
funny.
it show at least? Does it show?
It does show.
Do you have like a pliers or something?
I can take it out. I just took it out, but now I have to go look for another charger. Like I don't have another charger. This was my car charger.
If you're next to me, I'll give you
That's
one right
the
now.
best case scenario because you could have broken in, then you couldn't have gotten, then you would have been really screwed.
The
Now I have
guy.
to pay $100 for a new phone.
Christian, always on the bright side. That's why it's so bright and beautiful behind you. Were you there?
Gosh.
That was Beijing.
Oh man, I want to go there one time when the world comes back to whatever normal is.
Yeah, I went there last April, so just made the cut, you know.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Okay, so we have our 2 outlets. Let's get to our date, no, not date picker, our picker. Let's add the outlet for this. Do we need an outlet for that? Yes, we do. How do we set it if we don't have an outlet for it? So let's have an outlet for that. Picker view connect.
This sucks.
You'll be okay.
I have 71% for the rest of quarantine.
Order one on Amazon. What?
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna snatch my brothers.
Snatch my brothers. Okay, let's continue on here. Submit has action. So let's do an action for submit. So control drag over and change type here to UI button. And we'll just say submit button. We
don't need an outlet for the button, just the action, right?
Yeah, because we're not changing the colors or anything. We just need to know when it was selected.
Awesome.
Very good. Okay, cool. Moving on. I think we are good now. Let's just set up. There's a bunch of stuff we need to delete from this that we don't need. Let's clean the code up a little bit. We're done with this. We're not doing anything with sections. Okay, that's nicer. It feels like cleaning my apartment.
We could take both of those out. We're not doing anything with those?
No, because we have static cells.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because table view controller has its own table view. It has its own, the protocols, everything is set up already. But here we have static cells. We don't have any cell for row or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Very good. The only reason why we use the table view controller is to get access to the static cells here, because you can't do it with a regular table view. Right? That's the easiest way to manage this. Okay, so we have, let's go ahead and configure, write a function, function, configure. Have you guys been doing the essay a day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What function are we doing right now?
Configure picker view. Yeah, just try to do at least one thing a day. Yeah,
it's hard if you are really bad at it, though. Then
you get better. You get
You're
better.
not really bad at it, though.
You'll get better. I mean, look at me doing push-ups yesterday. I could barely do the thing. But
what are you talking about? What the heck?
No, I'm just saying you have to be consistent. You know, like initially it's gonna be hard, but as you do every a day, you'll get better. It's like with anything else, right? Yes. Yes. Yeah, just get that consistent. Like aim for that.
Sorry, so we're doing configure picker view because we don't have to.
We don't configure picker view because we're gonna call it right here. Where am I? Configure picker view.
You have to conform to the delegate.
Yes, delegate and data source.
Oh, that's the. Oh, okay. Why do you do it like that now?
Remember I said like try to clean up the view did load. Like don't have like too many things in there. Just clean it up. The less code you have there, the better. Right, back, okay. Just clean it up a little bit. That's all. Other than that, you'd have like 12 lines of code there very easily. But each of those could be their own mini helper function. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As we get closer to job readiness, we'll try to write code that's like job ready. So those are one of the things where you just want to write clean code. Submit button press, we have button here. Let's configure the stuff. So let's do create. All right, I had my snippet, but let me not do that. Let's do an extension for create post controller. We are conforming to UI picker view data source, right? And we are also conforming to what?
UI picker view delegate?
UI picker view delegate. Thank you, sir. I think you continue the lesson tomorrow. What do you think?
I agree.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I could put my feet up and watch some Netflix.
You could do that during not class hours, like I've been doing.
This guy. This guy. This guy.
Heard you. Heard you. Spicy.
Yeah, today's on fire. He's on fire. There's fire.
You being
I'm
more now. Where's
There's
the
fire. There's fire all over
cranky.
today.
Yeah,
This guy.
I slept 4.5 hours. I'm crazy.
Awesome. So we have our data source. What do we need? Oh, I haven't heard from Mr. Brendan. What do I need in here in that data force extension? Data source.
So your picker view data source, you need, was it number of, what's happening? Hold up. Let me see. Was it number of rows?
Number of rows is one thing, right? It needs to know how many rows it has. That's good. Number of rows, right? For now, we'll just return 0 or 10, whatever. And then what else does it need?
Was it components?
Components, very good. And the components is basically the columns, right? How many columns do we want?
Yeah.
In our case, if we look at our UI here with Cupertino, it's 1 column. But if you were to create something like a date picker that has like 3 columns, you would return 3, if that makes sense. Or some array with like the things in there. Very good. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Number of components, uno. Is that a thing? No?
No.
All right, so we have that. That's good. Compiler should be happy now. Go.
It's number of rows and component, I think.
Did I call the wrong one? Oh, look at this. Anything wrong there?
Oops.
Table view.
Aha, number of rows in components.
That is exactly what I meant.
No, that's what you said. I just typed the wrong thing. You are good, sir. Okay, now the compiler is quite happy. What's that?
Let's go to the replay.
Christian is on fire today. I'm telling you, watch out. Okay, cool. So for our delegate, we need to implement title 4 component. Title 4 component will just return some string for now. Just say title. We'll fix that. But I think we also need a did select, right? Let's just implement that as well. Did select row at. Make sure you say picker view, right? In all the things we've had so far, make sure it says picker view and not table view. So here we want to say did select. We'll come here with more code later. All right. What does the data source for that particular thing look like? Well, the data source is going to be users, right? The data source is going to be users. So if anything, let's start just testing out what does that look like and is our picker view populated. So we could take a step here. Before I actually continue, let's finish this storyboard. I'm kind of going ahead of myself. Create post is good. Our button is good. We have that. We have the picker view. All that stuff is good. We have access to the 2 text fields. That's fine. Let's keep going now before I go ahead of myself. Let's go to users.
Alex, could you repeat in the UI picker view delegate, the first function, what was it again?
Picker view delegate, this guy? Delegate.
Yeah, the delegate extension. It was
title 4. Yeah, title 4 row.
Got it.
Yep. And make sure it's, title 4 row, you did, title 4 row. Because table view doesn't have title 4 row.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we're going down to user scene. It doesn't have anything managing it yet. How are we doing on time? We started at 12:45, right? Ish, yes? I mean, actual lecture, right?
We got 7 minutes left.
Wow. Christian, I know where you live, man. I'm gonna come and say hello.
6 minutes, 30 seconds.
Make sure you bring my prize.
Yes, it's gonna be, with a brown bag.
Yeah, I'm weak.
All right, so users, click on users, and let's go to our inspectors and change the class for that. So our class is just a table view. It's a view controller. Type in users, view. Awesome. Let's set that up. I don't all that boilerplate code.
Hold on, wait. I'm so.
I'm here.
So we did, all right, so we did the
we just did create post.
And then we're jumping to the users.
Because we've done posts already, correct?
Well, all we did was just connect
the connections. Let's do all the connections. Yep.
Oh, so that's what we're doing. Okay.
Yep, because I don't want to go back and forth. Let's just finish the storyboard and be done with it.
Okay, gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so back in users, what do we have? We have a table view. Let's drag a table view over, table view. That's about it for this guy. Everybody set up their users, right? The class is a class to manage it, and then we added the table view extension. Oh, sorry, not the extension, the outlet. 2 Christians, only one looks happy. Oh, there's 2 Christians here today?
Are there?
Da, 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 da.
It's the story.
I know.
Of a lovely lady.
Now let's go to our 4th scene, which is the create user controller. Click on your 4th scene at the bottom and go to your inspector and search for create user. Make sure it's create user and not create poster. And let's get rid of the boilerplate code we have. Boilerplate code done. We don't need the data source methods at all. This is all we have. And let's connect our outlets. I think we I don't want to kill us and not come tomorrow. We'll connect all the outlets and we will wrap it up. Does that make sense? Sure. All right. Yeah. And then 10 o'clock, same place, same time. We're ready to rock and roll. Rock and load. Okay, let us continue on. So create user is a text field. There's a text field here. Let's control drag text field. Just call this user text field or username text field. Username text field. Mr. Christian, you're able to get through the KVO video, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have to make a next one, right? I'm good. We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, because I was about to make one at 10 p.m. last night.
I was just asking, I thought maybe the error would have been on the upload to YouTube.
That was part of it, but not the whole part of it, right? Because it was still, yeah.
I figured it might have been like just like an easy...
easy fix.
Yeah.
There was some fix they could have done before, but I think they don't do that anymore. Apparently, you could have put like a tag in the video to say like I wanted to...
The video that you sent later
was a bit better.
Yeah, it was all I needed.
So I reloaded it, and then that same video should be on YouTube now.
Okay, I was nearly done anyway when I asked. I only had like 3 minutes left. So.
Okay, I did like a hack. I sent it to my phone and I uploaded it from YouTube. I mean, to YouTube from my phone, and that was better this morning. I don't know. I don't know.
Alex?
Yes, he's here.
For some reason, when I drag text field, like control drag to connect, it does it as an action, not as a outlet.
The text field itself? Are you dragging to the cell? Make sure you're not dragging from the cell. Although
I think I'm dragging from...
Is a text field?
Yeah, it's from the text field.
Redo it and drag it from the document outline and verify, make sure it's a text field. Drag it from the document outline.
Lube, I just had the same thing, and I had it because I didn't identify the view controller. So make sure.
Because what?
I didn't identify the view controller in the identifier inspector for that controller.
He's saying that his class wasn't configured yet. So make sure you have that's configured, correct?
Yeah, because I had the same thing she had, and now I just did it, and now it went away. So
but I guess it didn't register.
Always press enter on that one.
Yeah, I did.
Xcode is like, I am tired. I need lunch. Xcode is saying I need lunch now.
It's still action.
Close it and reopen. Because close Xcode. Quit Xcode and reopen. Xcode. Okay, so now we have a date picker. Does a dick pic have a data source or is it target action?
Targeted action.
Target action. Right, everybody on board? Yeah. It's like a button.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we need an action for it. So we'll control drag over and just have some sort of button here. We'll change this to UI date picker. We'll say date picker changed. That becomes an action. That's good. So we have an outlet, we have an action, and we need one more action for the submit button. Submit button. Change this to UI button and change this to submit button. Luba, did that work for you?
Not yet.
Working now? Okay, so at this point, we have most of our storyboard set up, right? And the connections and everything, right? Most of that is set up. So we could actually, man, I could just keep going, but I gotta think of everybody. I can be the crazy guy who just keeps going. Like the guy who runs a marathon in his backyard.
Oh, you?
No, I'm not there yet.
But you just ordered the treadmill, so you will be there. Like,
yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that, dude. I think end of day tomorrow.
Look at that.
Oh my God, we're not gonna recognize you when you come back. Please don't get too slim, Alex. I told you about this already.
The slimmer, the faster you go. That's what they say.
Alex is going to teach the class while he's on the treadmill.
Challenge accepted.